is just to welcome you all to Arup. My name is Martin Schuler. I'm the London Water leader here at Arup. And welcome to this building in particular. This is a new building for Arup. We moved in during the pandemic. And this is where we do our sort of innovation and collaboration space. So it's a little bit different. We're finding different ways of using it, but welcome. And I think it's quite apt that we've got this space today. So next slide, please. Oh, we'll come back to that one. Go back to the other slide. Just by way of introductions and sort of housekeeping, we've got some of these rooms around here that we can use. If anybody needs to make a phone call, either step aside across the way where you had the networking. But we've also got room 16 as well if you want to take that there or leave any baggage there, but it's quite safe over there as well. So in terms of Arup, so for those who don't know us, oh, the slide's changed again. Oh, look one way. Okay, so I won't go on too much, but we're an international engineering consultant, and it's our pleasure to host the Water Industry Summit here today. But this gives you a bit of a view on where we're based, so very internationally focused as well as in the UK. But back to the most important thing, housekeeping. So this is probably the most important thing you're going to hear, is where the loos are and where you can take those calls. So the loos are basically across the way. They're signposts, but go past the tea room and you'll find that there. Feel free to get up during the course of today, make calls, make new friends, and build those networks that you've already got there. The last thing that I'd like to say is to welcome our chair. So most of you will know Sarah Hendry. So it's our chair today. She'll be taking us through the course of the morning. I'm going to hand over now to Sarah, chair of the UK Water Partnership. Thank you.
Martin, thank you very much. And can I just extend everyone's thanks to Arup for hosting us today, because it's no mean task to find facilities large enough in London that we can use and everybody wants to come to. And I just have to say, it's fabulous to see a really big group. Sadly, it shows the value of coming to London, because all trains lead to London, I think. So we've got a really good turnout. I think that's also due to the fact that we're partnering with a range of organisations in the water sector today. So it's not just the UK Water Partnership, but it's British Water, UKWP, the Water Industry Forum, Spring, and the Future Water Association. And that really is, I think, a signal of one of the main themes of what we're trying to do today, which is about collaboration. I think the other brilliant thing is just to say the mix of people in the room, great gender balance, good to see probably nearly as many women as there are guys, so that's a really good thing. And there's probably even more online, although we can't necessarily see them all, and young and old as well. And I count myself in the older sector, but great to see lots of people at an earlier stage of their career. So we should get some really, really good input. Just briefly, the UK Water Partnership, in case anybody is unfamiliar with it, has been around for about 8-9 years now, and was really brought together by its founders to help convene and join up the different segments of the water sector to create a strategic vision for the development and growth of the UK water industry. For the benefit of the UK, and it is truly, in these days when we tend to be divided up into different nations, it is truly a UK water partnership. Not only is it about trying to solve the UK's water challenges, but also to have a really strong eye on what the global challenges are and to position the UK sector to help respond to those. So we're delighted to have really good connections with the Department for Business and Trade, so that's really good news. So we will start in the sort of classic form for these events. For those of you who've been to the last few, the morning is about getting some perspectives, the big picture perspectives from different parts of the sector and different parts of the UK about what the challenges are, and then what will be the opportunities for us all to try and help solve those challenges. We're absolutely delighted that we will have the UK Water Minister, Rebecca Pow, with us at about 11:15, and I'm just going to, she's on quite a tight timetable, so forgive me if I truncate anything, so that we can bring her on and get her perspective, and then we'll sort of rejig slightly and pick up the agenda after that. So I am not going to, in the interest of getting on and moving with the time, I'm not going to hang around anymore. We will get into block one, which is our first session, starting on those challenges and opportunities that I was talking about. And I'm delighted to welcome as our first speaker, Nigel Watson from Northumbrian Water. And Nigel has been CIO of Northumbrian for more than 7 years now. And in that time, he's led the successful delivery of the company's transformation with an overall ambition of making Northumbrian the most digital water company in the world. So no lack of ambition there, Nigel. And Nigel's also responsible for the innovation strategy and execution across the group, and the father of the famous Innovation Festival, which is usually at a racecourse, isn't it?
It is, yes.
So big and attracts around 3,000 participants from around the world with the aim of generating those ideas. So Nigel, very happy to welcome you and look forward to hearing your take on those challenges. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. And yeah, today Heidi Mottram's stunt double. So Heidi sends her apologies. She does road shows at this time of year, meets every single employee in the company, and so she's really busy doing that. So I've got a mic and a clicker. I'm talking for England today, though. That's well, which is funny because when I was a little kid, my grandma always used to say to me, "Dear God, you could talk for England," and 50 years later, here I am. So, anyway. Yeah, so I'll get into this. The most digital water company in the world, I guess, you know, no one can ever measure that, obviously. So it is a generalised ambition, right, and a signal more to our business and our colleagues than anything else. So I just want to sort of start with that. I'll start though, how are we doing? All right. I mean, I think with the, you know, with the targets that we've got in this AMP, we're performing quite well. So we were #1 at CMEX. I think in a scorecard that's got 40 odd measures in it, if we had to pick one, we would probably pick that. I haven't handpicked these metrics, I promise you, but you know, our bathing waters are good. We're doing well on pollution, so you know, no Cat 1s or Cat 2s for several years, and our Cat 3s have come way down. We're #1 for leakage in Essex and Suffolk as well. So we're performing quite strongly. But I guess it's not enough, is it? And I think we all know that, and we'd all recognise that. So you know, challenges here you'll all be familiar with. There's obviously the press. I like this one. There was a headline in our local paper, Heidi Mottram and her cronies. So I might, apart from being a stunt double, also be a crony, I guess. But yeah, storm overflows. That's definitely been something that's really, I think, caught the industry out. I think we'd have to own up to that. Customer behaviour is changing very, very quickly, and their greatest experience they've just had on the most digital platform ever is what set their expectations, and rightly so, and we aim to meet them there. And then, you know, a big mix of employees and a need to recruit a lot more, and a lot more work to do, I guess, in the next AMP. That's what we're facing. And so I thought I'd talk today about the engines that we have to face these challenges, and any challenges indeed that come at us. And it's probably worth saying 90% of what we do, and I think that's probably true of most, if not all, water companies, is more of the same, right? So really, I'm talking about 10% of what we do, just to put it in context. We have 3 engines that help us to improve our business. One of them is transformation. It's a very overused term, I think, but we've run some large programs over the course of the last few years. We did customer experience, and then we went into intelligent asset management, so work and asset management. We're doing smart metering right now, and we've just started to transform our business to face into that larger capital delivery program. So we do an amount of that. We expect to deliver at least 90% of the business case. That might seem quite high, but actually we're doing probably a little bit better than that. There are recipes for delivering this stuff successfully, actually, and we follow them. So no real magic, And then we have continuous improvement. I don't need to really explain that, but we've adopted agile and product management and those kind of techniques that help us to keep on delivering improvements to our business every month. And then we have innovation. And the reason I put 4 out of 10 there is that's our expected success rate from innovation. It's a very different thing. We categorise it as innovation if we're the first water company in the UK to do it. It has a different risk profile, therefore, and therefore we have different expectations. We govern it differently. It has different processes. And I'll explain a little bit of that as we go through these slides. So firstly, transformation. I guess this underpins everything, which is our architecture, right? And it's lack of timing, I think, of anything else. So probably going back to 2015, we had some systems there, key systems for our business. So our CRM and billing system, 20 years old. Our work and asset management system also 20 years old. And we needed to replace them. So the catalyst for change was definitely the fact that we had some old technology that we needed to swap out. But we really went for business-led transformation programs, and that's kind of how we got through this. But what we've ended up with, so from 2015 to 2020, mostly, below the line here, we swapped out these systems. It's a lot of heavy lifting. It's a lot of data migration. It's a lot of parallel runs. It's hard work, really hard work. But we've put in place very modern, very cloud-based architecture, and it allows us to have some agility. And we've spent the last 3 years having, I might say, a lot more fun up here. And it's more fun because time to value is a hell of a lot shorter. You know, if you're replacing a billing system, that's a 3-year program for a business like ours. Whereas now we're into delivering stuff every month, and it makes a real difference to our business. And just a few lessons learned, and look, you can look online, and there's a lot of obvious things like exec sponsorship and things like that. So I thought I won't bore you with that, but maybe pick out a few less obvious things that we did that I think made a real difference. The first one we used was Insights. It's a tool that comes out of the works, the philosophies of Carl Jung, if you like, but it helps people to understand themselves as individuals a bit better. And more importantly, helps them to understand the people around them and to work collaboratively as a team. And so we put everybody who joined the transformation program through Insights, and we continue to use it throughout the program. Every 3 months, we do something to kind of just build on that and build a sense of one team. Because coming together in a transformation team, you've got people who have never worked together before, people from our business and people from partners, people from technology functions. We've never worked together in that way. It's very pressurized. I guess the thing that's really different about a transformation program is the burn rate. It can be millions of pounds a month. You can't slip. You know, just kind of going, well, I'll get that document tomorrow. It doesn't work. So you really need to understand that that's the sort of environment that you're in. So building one team and building resilience in the people that are in that team is really important in transformation. We don't do post-mortems, we do pre-mortems. They are bruising affairs, I might say. About every 3 months we do them. I saw a few people cringe at that description of bruising, but they really, people who run transformation programs generally are optimists. I count myself as one of them. But in reality, things can go wrong, right? And the things that are most apt to catch you out are the things that you haven't identified. So really, a pre-mortem is a risk identification technique. And what we do, we spend a day out of the office looking at the next 3 months in the plan or a significant activity in the plan, and then think about all the things that can go wrong. And we don't just have the team there, we invite people from outside of our business as well to really kick the tires on the plan. And so pre-mortems, I would put to you, are a really good thing to do if you've got a large existing program to run. We developed this go, no go criteria that I think served us incredibly well. We had it audited by financial auditors. It was objective and complete, they concluded it. And it didn't just look at program readiness. So are we as a program, have we done all the testing, do the parallel runs all work, all of that kind of stuff? Have we delivered the training? We also looked at the BAU environment in which we were going to drop this change into. So if there was a flu pandemic going on in the contact centre, no point in going live, right? Because you're only going to just pour petrol on the fire. So we took a very holistic approach at go, no go. as a technology sponsor and the business sponsor, I had no option to override a red on this plan. Only an amber was the only thing I had discretion on. So this was signed off by our board as, yeah, this is what we'd expect from you. And they took the view that, actually, you know what, if you're a couple of months late because you've got a red on the plan, we're okay with that. And then the implementation dip, the performance dip that inevitably comes when you deliver a big change, we always built that into our plans. And so that way, we were never sort of scrambling around feeling really disappointed about what happened when we first went live. When you go live with the new CRM and billing system, everybody is a day one user. Inevitably, your calls are going to take longer, your call queues will go up, etc., etc. So we planned for that. And then I suppose the last point is embedding change takes a really long time. And so rule of thumb, I guess I've now developed is, if it takes us 3 years to deliver a program, it'll probably take us 3 years to embed it as well. And so we keep at it. We keep on going into embed and sustain and then optimization before we really hang up and just go, okay, life is BAU now. Innovation. So this is we look at, oh, hang on, I'll go back one. This is our scorecard, if you like. So on innovation, we look at this every month at the exec team. So it's worth currently, it's got £78 million worth of value in it. That's an annualized value. It won't all deliver, right? Because we're 4 out of 10. So if it was delivering on averages, it would deliver us about £30 million a year. I'll say you that. We work very hard on the culture of our organisation. So about a quarter of our people go to the festival. I've got a very small innovation team, actually it's 6 people. We have a very large team though of innovation ambassadors that come from around the business, there's about 90 of them. And they bring problems in and they take ideas back out. And we give them money to spend every month. And I think that really matters. So they have a reason for showing up every month. They have 30k each month that they can choose to invest in whatever they are interested in. We can put some numbers there, I guess, on the festival, but I'll show you a little video in a minute. One thing that often we don't talk about as much is perhaps R&D. So at any given moment, we probably have 30 PhD students on the go. So we're pretty active in that space as well. And yeah, I'm going to play a video. Does it just... If you haven't been to the festival, I'm guessing there already have. Oh, no. Okay.
It's time to kick off. All right. This is Northumbrian Water's Innovation Festival 2023.
Can't believe we're back for the 7th time.
7 years, it's incredible.
This is all about us really getting proper solutions that indeed do benefit everybody.
It is a mashing together of innovation technique.
Gathering all of these great people. If we don't make this happen, nobody's going to make it happen.
Don't be frightened, talk and debate. It's about the exchange of knowledge, it's about innovating together.
You don't know what's going to come out, but the very fact that you're bringing all these different people together from all these different backgrounds, that is the magic stuff.
We've got a room full of brilliant brains here.
We're coming together as a team. We've made some incredible connections. It's a multi-collaborative environment.
It's such an incredible thing to see so many people wanting to make new ideas and make new inventions.
I literally cannot believe the creativity.
Best part of the festival this year has been the energy in the room, just that passion.
Really enjoyed seeing lots of different companies, different people, stuff that I wouldn't come across in my daily work life normally.
The chance of real change is really high.
Our participants should all go away feeling so proud of themselves, and I can't thank them enough.
There will be ideas that originated here that will change the world.
Okay, it was a little bit clunky. Sorry about that. But anyway, hopefully you got the
What
idea.
we're looking at here is referred to as a stopcock. It's basically a tap, as you can see. It controls the water flow through.
Stopcock.
That couldn't be any better, really, could it? Right. Anyway, I'll compose myself. So if it looked like fun, it is. And come, it's 8th to the 12th of July next year, Newcastle Racecourse, and our friends Amy here will be providing free ice cream again, I'm sure, so, which is always a bit of a winner. It is fun, but its main purpose is to generate new ideas for us. And it will probably generate 40, 50 ideas that come into our innovation pipeline. And we track that pipeline, right? And we have a process of how you get from idea to value. I would say that's really hard work, right? Not so much fun. But there's a lot of experimentation. We're quite deliberate about the process, and we're not afraid to kill things off if we think they're not going to make it. So that sort of takes us about 3 to 4 years, idea to value, roughly. If we're innovating with data, a little less, 6 to 18 months. And we look at this pipeline, like I said, every month at our exec team meeting. So, I mean, those are the tools, right? And I just thought I'd put up a couple of challenges and give you a view on how we use those tools to solve those problems. And the first one, storm overflows, I guess I couldn't not talk about it. So we've just kicked off the transformation program. It's a real-time control smart sewer system. We're doing it in the Tyneside area. It's a big system, I might say. It's got 6 interceptors. The idea of it is to hold more water in the pipe, right? So it's got level and flow sensors. We've really studied this. We're not putting 20,000 sensors out there. We think that would be very expensive, but we've found sort of about 1,200 locations where it would really make a difference to gain some insight. Then we'll be doing some engineering work, so gates, valves, penstocks, and then it'll have a digital twin that will control the flow of water. And our early suggestion is that can increase the capacity of our network by effectively about 40%, and not that much money actually. So that'll be the first thing we do. What it will tell us, and we'll need to put some additional storage in place. I think that's inevitable. But it will tell us exactly where and exactly how much. And I think that's another great thing that will come out of that program. What we don't know, I suppose, yet is how to change our business. We're very open to that, but we are aware of the fact that it's likely to change our target operating model in the wastewater area. From a continuous improvement point of view, so this is our wet weather solution. This is our dry weather solution. Storm harvester, we've been using it for years. I think several companies in the industry do too. It helps us to spot ingress inundation where there's build up of grit and helps us to prioritise our maintenance activities. And we keep going with that. And then from an innovation point of view, as we've done this transformation, we always layer in innovation in the transformation program. And in this case, we're looking at can we spill based on load rather than flow. So at the moment, the system will work based on how much water is going to come out. But if we can, in real time, measure the coliforms, and we don't need to measure it that accurately because it is a relative measure, then can we spill in a certain place where we'll do less harm? We're asking ourselves that, and also looking at can we treat as we spill? Even if it counts as a spill, at least it will be less harmful to the environment. And then leakage. So one of the earlier transformation programs that I mentioned, we did intelligent asset management. So we set up this process. So basically, if a customer records a leak, they come on our website or call our contact centre. It will go all the way through the process in a touchless way, out to the field and to the operative who has an app on their phone, so they can go and fix it. I looked at some stats when I put this presentation together. So from a continuous improvement point of view, response time to visible leaks when we first went live was about 9.5 days. We're down to about 4.5 now, and we're going at that. So yeah, that's how continuous improvement is built on top of the transformation, if you like, in delivering improvements. And then from an innovation point of view, finding leaks, we've used everything from satellites to dogs. and in different scenarios we found them to be colourful at different times of year. But we're really excited about this one, which is an innovation in fixing leaks, which is no-dig, which is a food grade product that can fix a leak like that. Actually, it's a remarkable thing to see a demo of, and we can now fix leaks for about a quarter of the cost, and we're scaling that actually. So that one we think will be a real game changer. And I guess I couldn't conclude a presentation that's mostly digital without talking about the culture of the organisation, because I think, you know, if you haven't got the culture right, none of this other stuff matters. And I think it's a culture of a learning organisation. Fundamentally, I made this point several times over the years in our business, we know less now than we used to know because of the rate of change. Climate is changing really quickly on us, customers' expectations are changing, employees' expectations are changing. Was ever thus, I guess, but it feels like the rate of change is different. And that, I would say, is probably what the water industry is facing more than anything right now. And since we have adopted this, we've not radically changed our culture. I think it was always there, but definitely it has moved on. And you can see now people are prepared to take a chance. They are prepared to fail, and they are prepared to learn. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We're going to move quickly on to Scotland now. I hope we've got Rosemary, see her earlier. Rosemary Greenhill online from the Scottish Government. Rosemary is Head of Water Policy at Scottish Government, and as well as being a civil servant over the last 30 or so years, she does actually have a PhD in water flooding, river flooding. So she has covered the water industry within the Scottish Government for many years, and that's about advising ministers, particularly on their policies relating to ownership of Scottish water and all the tricky issues around charging and investment. Rosemary, can you hear me?
I can, thank you, Sarah.
Great, thank you. And who's controlling Rosemary's slides? Francisco. So if you could say next slide, please, when you want Francisco to move your slides on, that would be great. Thank you, Rosemary.
I will do. Thanks so much, Sarah. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to present today. Apologies from John Rasjan, who was meant to give you a presentation today. It's half term in Scotland, so everybody's away out in the hills, hopefully enjoying the sunshine before the storm comes along. I had hoped to come down to London, but clearly there's staffing issues and there's a storm on its way, and no doubt that will send the water industry and many others into apoplexy as we try and mop up behind there. Sadly, it's the second one in 10 days. And the last one had some disastrous consequences, as you probably saw on the news. Thank you for the introduction, Sarah. Yes, I've worked with the Scottish Government for many, many years, and in the water industry in particular. It's a passion. I've got a passion for the water industry. I think it's a fabulous place to work in, so hopefully some of that passion will come through. Today I want to give you a perspective, a government perspective, rather than a very in-depth perspective, and it really reflects some of the work that we've been doing recently. Could we move on to the first slide, please, Francesco? So I wanted to talk to you a bit about the sort of challenges that we're seeing from a government perspective, and in particular climate change. Because just like this tomorrow's Storm Babbitt, we've seen all sorts in recent times. So firstly, I think we're all noticing that climate change is having an impact, and it's coming at a much faster rate than we ever thought. We've heard that the number of days breaking records has been higher than ever, and so 2023 has been warmer than ever before, and it's a trend that's increasing. This has real impacts in the water industry, and we're seeing them, we're seeing them every day. From algal blooms, that's Strathclyde Lough. It's not actually a drinking water supply, but it's used for bathing. It's used for the Commonwealth Games, and that's a pretty murky pond. But also we get it coming into the drinking water. So on the bottom right hand side, that is water that's been abstracted from a reservoir, a lovely shade of a smoothie colour, but increasingly difficult, as you'll appreciate, to treat and to bring to the crystal clear water that we'd like out of our taps, and of course increased costs. So we're thinking about what do we need to do to adapt to these changes. Next slide, please. Of course, a rather topical subject, a bit rainy and a bit wet. We're getting more increased intensity of storms, and we know that's going to increase. On the left-hand side, a picture that I pinched from the Met Office showing the intensity growing with time. And just to reflect on actually the last weekends, so the 6th and the 7th of October, the damage that it did. So a few pictures of assets that have been impacted. Top right-hand corner, that's a pumping station, the control boxes, and with a little puddle underneath. Not good when you mix water with electricity. A second one is the spillway damage. The torrents that came down the spillway have actually broken the spillway. And then the third one at the bottom is a pipe bridge. Pipe bridges were washed away. I know we had a lot about the roads, but nothing about bridges. Pipe bridges washed away, and in fact that's got a handy boat stuck under the bridge as well. That was near Dunoon. People lost their water supplies and had to have emergency supplies or alternative supplies provided. So we brace ourselves for the next storm, which will no doubt hopefully not make these situations worse, but sadly probably because it's in the same location. Next slide, please. We've had lots of wet weather, but we've had lots of dry as well, and it's coming more and more frequently. In the recent 5 years, we've had water scarcity somewhere in Scotland every single year. Principally, we've seen it with private water supplies running out, so we've had to deliver bottled water just to keep people going. I dread to think what it's like to live with on bottled water, but people do, they have to, until the water supply returns. Here, so surprisingly this year actually affected public supplies, and I don't know whether you saw the news. Actually in Skye, Isle of Skye, we saw a river that had never run dry before. It ran dry, and it happened to be a water source for a public supply. So Scottish Water had to lay pipe using that helicopter across to another locham to abstract water, and it was done very, very quickly. The water levels shift very quickly, so it leads to emergency situations, and sadly this is happening more and more often. Bottom, the two left-hand sides, that was last year. Dry reservoirs, both in the east of Scotland. And again, we were starting to panic, but fortunately the rain gods answered our prayers and came and washed us all away again. But the main thing to notice, it's happening more and more frequently, and it doesn't seem to have, there's no pattern. It could be in the northwest of Scotland, southeast, east, and every time we run, it sends us round into a spin. Tankering, of course, so we do there's lots of tankering in Scotland, partly to do with visitor numbers. With big increases in visitor numbers, you can't cope. Water treatment works don't work for huge swings in populations. So we have a lot of tankering, made worse when it gets dry, so we have even more tankering. So again, we're thinking about how do we manage these situations? How do we manage our water resources better? Next slide, please, Francisco. And as has just been mentioned, the wording seems to have gone, but all right, never mind. As has just been noticed, we've got the problems of overflows. I'm not sure we really need to think quite carefully about how we deal with those. We've also got flooding that has customer impacts, internal flooding and external flooding, and at the same time drought. We've had people leading to bursts, so sometimes big bursts. I think if that was that case, we had to have alternative supplies, so people queuing to collect bottled water. These all pose great problems, and we've got to think about what we do. So in government, we're thinking about how do we respond to drought, and how do we respond to too much water, and how do we respond to drainage problems. Clearly that's lots of water, so how do we design our urban spaces better? Next slide, please. As all of you will know, ageing assets in Scotland, we have proportionately more assets relative to our population. That is a huge challenge that we've got to deal with. It's a real struggle as to how we deal with these assets whilst dealing with a changing climate. Just a couple of sides, one of a nice reservoir and the other one of a rather tired water treatment works. Next slide, please. Opportunities. Well, of course, I always see there's always opportunities to do things. Opportunities for new innovation, to deliver low carbon solutions, as is here. This is our new treatment works for Peebles. It was an innovative solution. I went to visit it. It has no open tanks. Everything's a closed system, which is quite novel for the water industry, but definitely the way to go. Much smaller footprint, and much better reliability of quality of water. Of course, as with our last speaker, embracing new technologies, there's clearly lots of improvements we can make taking on board digital, particularly where in Scotland, where we have assets, so many assets and great distances between them, and also securing. So on drinking water, particularly, we've got to think about how we get improvements in catchments and deliver some multiple improvements, whether it be for biodiversity and for water quality and peatland restoration. So there's lots of things to think about, and we're thinking about how do we deliver that in terms of water resource planning down to the catchment protections, and how do we do this in a way that's proportionate to the costs. Next slide, please. On drainage, you've seen the pictures in terms of flooding, and no doubt we'll have more nasty pictures this weekend by the time Storm Babbitt's run around. We're thinking about how do we get more lower carbon solutions. Clearly, upsizing our sewer systems is outrageously expensive. We need to think about blue-green infrastructure, how we get it into the planning system so drainage is designed at the outset of a development, never mind a nice to have or an extra when it gets to the end of a development. And how do we make sure that it helps the water environment? So we pull back all that water that's currently going over the sewer overflows and keep where it falls. So very much that picture of that rain garden, that's in Glasgow. But we need to do an awful lot more of it, and we need to probably put in statutory provisions to make sure it happens as a must rather than as a nice to have. Again, securing multiple benefits. Less rain and sewers. How do we improve the environment, the urban environment? Clearly, rain gardens look much nicer than lots of tarmac. So we're thinking about all these things, and we've been doing lots of work with our with Scottish Water and all the regulators to think about how do we adapt and how do we think about these opportunities to make Scotland a better place in terms of the water environment going forward. Next slide. I think that's it. That's me. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, Rosemary. Thank you very much indeed. And I think people here will be recognising a lot of the challenges that you describe as being common across other parts of the UK. I was particularly struck by what you said about having a relatively small population base to pay for things, but still a large amount of infrastructure. So that's an interesting challenge. We're going to move swiftly on now, and we're back in the room with Gail. So with Nicola's going first, I apologise. So Nicola, I hope you can hear us. I can see you there. So Nicola Thomas is Deputy Director of Environment and Rural Affairs in the EU Exit and Strategy Unit with the Welsh Government. Nicola, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thanks for having me here today. Bore da for anybody who is Welsh in the audience today. I'm the reserve on the reserve. So I apologise right now for the level of knowledge, but hopefully with my previous experience in the water industry when I started off my career, I will be able to do a fairly decent job here today with my colleague Gail, who will be looking at the wider challenges and opportunities across Wales's water sector shortly after me. So I'll try and keep this succinct. Just to say that so I'm Nicola Thomas. I'm actually the Deputy Director for the Strategic Evidence, Borders and Intergovernmental Relations team. So the important bit about that, I guess, is that we're still involved in some way on the strategic evidence side of things. Thankfully, I did used to be a head of water in a previous incarnation as well, so a little bit of history there. So what I'm going to try and do today is give the sort of Welsh Government's policy context of where we are in terms of how we want to manage water in all its context in relation to Wales, and then specifically to look at one particular challenge that we have at the moment. As Rosemary said, I think all the challenges that they're experiencing within that Scottish environment are very similar to what we have in Wales, but there will be different effects, different extremes, etc. But I want today to have a little look at something in particular and how we've come together to try and address that approach. So could I have the first slide, please? So in terms to help understand the context, so in terms of Wales, water is a devolved matter, so it is wholly managed and regulated, and the policies are set with Welsh Government and the regulators. The context for it is very much set out within the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. So this was the act that Welsh Government took forward to basically put sustainable development at the heart of all decisions within central government for us. This was taken forward in 2015. It introduces 7 wellbeing goals and 5 ways of working, which are then taken forward within this Labour government's manifesto and now programme for government. And the things to pull out within that are specific to the water sector are there is a commitment in there, a general overarching one, which is about embedding our response to the climate and nature emergencies in everything we do. And then secondly, and more specifically, is to begin to designate Wales's inland waters for recreation, but also strengthening the water quality monitoring across the whole of Wales. And I'll come on to these bits through my example in a little bit more. Next slide, please. After the WFG Act, we then brought in the Environment Wales Act, which was in 2006. So this has been based on a number of discussions we had with water industry, with regulators, with agricultural sector, ENGOs, a whole plethora of individuals around Wales about managing the natural resources and understanding how important natural resources are to Wales. So the Environment Act 2006 basically introduces what we are now calling the sustainable management of our natural resources, and this is about managing our natural resources in a more joined up manner, which then really looks at the outcomes we want to achieve, not only for the environment but for people and the economy, and making lives in our communities better all round. And the aim here is just to make the most of those opportunities that our natural resources afford to us, while safeguarding and building in resilience of these natural systems so they can continue to provide those benefits over the long term. And the long term is very much a focus here. In order to achieve SMNR, the Act introduced 9 principles. I won't read them all out there, they're up on the diagram there. But the important thing about this approach is it's about the collection of these principles. It's about doing all of this to help us achieve SMNRs. It's not just doing the one thing, which would be to be built on good evidence or to have some public participation. It's about taking this whole approach. And you'll see in there that public participation and collaboration are key in there, as is adaptive management, which includes that innovation that Nigel spoke about before, about building on our evidence, about ensuring we know the intrinsic value of our natural resources, and looking at appropriate scales. Next slide, please. So my colleagues in the water team have given me some stats about the state of water in Wales for us to share today, just to give us a snapshot of where we are. So we do have excellent drinking water quality. I don't think this has changed since I was doing this. It was 99.97% of compliance. We've only got 40% of water bodies at good or better ecological status, with 44% achieving this under the WFD classification. However, that is an 8% change from when I was doing it almost a decade ago. So there is slow progress there. We have got 93% of water bodies at good or better chemical status. We have 109 designated bathing waters, and I think the bathing waters programs within Wales is a particular success and shows what happens when you do get really good key collaborations working together. And 67% of our SAC rivers are not meeting phosphorus standards. Now, this is the particular challenge that I'm going to come on to into a minute, and we're going to have a look at that. Next slide, please. So our approach in Wales, based on that policy content and those acts, is very much to take a Team Wales approach. And this is seen across the whole of the water sector. So whether it be from things like, as we've got there, the storm overflow issues and considering better management of those. There is a Better River Quality Task Force, which brings individuals together, whether it's around tackling the issues around phosphorus in our SACs, which I'll come on to in a little bit, and whether it's about making the most of our water monitoring and being able to create a better platform for this and bring it all together so everyone knows and can use the right information. We're all starting from the same baseline. And importantly, a very good success story has been improving our SUDS legislation, which we brought in. So as Rosemary was alluding to earlier, the issues we have around surface water within Wales, our SUDS programme is really helping to address some of this. Next slide, please. So in particular, I just wanted to touch here on one particular challenge that we're having in Wales, which is the phosphorus pollution in our SAC rivers is absolutely a serious issue. It's having an impact not only on the aquatic ecosystems, it's having an impact on our communities, and it's having an impact on the economy. Most noticeably, the pressing need for developing houses and affordable houses in Wales, and it's having an impact, and these have had to be paused. So there's very much been a high-level ministerial interest in that, and that has been key to corralling everybody to address this. So we know that the nutrients come from multiple sources, and we know that there is no one single solution, and we know that there's no quick fix. Next slide, please. So why is it hard? Why is it hard to be able to address some of these issues? And this is a slide from my colleague, and what she wanted to really put over was that there are a number of reasons for this. We have to go back, we have to sit back and pause and have a look where we are in order to look forward. So historically as a society, it's kind of like, I'm going to flush down my toilet. I don't really care where it goes because there's somebody over there, that lovely water industry, or water board, as some people still say, that takes care of it and it goes away. We're not historically connecting all of our pressures together. We need to understand that we all have a stake in this. People are saying it's not my responsibility, it's yours. So trying to understand that more joined up approach is going to be really important. I won't go through all of these because I know time is slightly limited, but these are the challenges. And the important part here is that we've sort of stopped and taken stock of these in order to be able to inform the way forward. Next slide, please. So as I said, there was quite a high-level ministerial response. So our First Minister convened his first summit to discuss the phosphorus situation within our SAC rivers. That was last July. We've had another one since then, which was in March, and we're due to have another one now at the end of November, where the First Minister really wants to have a stop, a review, and see where we are in terms of progress and are our actions the right actions to be taken. He's very much brought all the regulators, the water companies, developers, farming unions, academia, research bodies, ENGOs, and anybody else, and community and local government representatives together into one place to discuss how we can tackle this. I mean, there has been a significant amount of work by all the stakeholders. It very much is, as the ministers like to say, a Team Wales approach, and that produced a new action plan that focused on the SACs and dealing with this issue. And some of these are led not just by Welsh Government, they're led by other stakeholders. So it very much is a collaboratively owned action plan for action in these rivers. And I have to say that progress is slow. That's the nature of the complexities of our river systems. It is going to be slow. However, the fact that we've got this far, there are some good things that are happening at a fairly high place in terms of mitigations. And most importantly, because everyone's in it together, as Nigel said, there is an optimism with the group and there's a desire to do this. The expectations are high, and that is now driving progress. Next slide, please. And this is just, I'm going to just glance over these. out of the action plan, there were 8 themes of action, and they range from governance to a nutrient trading scheme, to a review of catchment consenting, and looking at other agricultural solutions. So that's just a quick overview of where we are with that. And I want to leave time for Gail to be able to come in, to be able to look at the wider challenges and opportunities. So Gail, am I okay to hand over to you, please?
Nicola, thank you very much. And Gail is going to come and step up. Gail, I'm going to try and pronounce Afonydd.
Very well.
Oh, there you go. Gail is the Chief Executive, effectively the Welsh Rivers Trust, and you've worked in environmental consultancy, water companies, as well as the Rivers Trust. And you're also currently a technical advisor, I understand, to the Welsh Government on better river water quality. So I can see that there's a seamless
transition.
I'll move you over. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello to everybody today. Thank you very much for inviting me. So to pick up from Nicola's talk, I'm just going to go back a minute, sorry. Just a little bit of an explanation. Afonydd Cymru, as Sarah said, represents the Rivers Trusts in Wales. A little bit of background as well, which is I've actually worked in 3 water companies in the UK, so I have a huge amount of experience and knowledge around the water industry before I joined the ENGO sector, and that perhaps will play a little bit in today. My intention is just to very definitely focus on opportunities and challenges from Nicola's excellent talk, and I suppose the first point I would make is a very good demonstration of collaboration in Wales is the fact that I get to share a platform with my government. Okay, so these pictures here are 2 rivers in Wales at the moment this summer, and that is unfortunately the picture that we see, and that is why we're really keen to see action and work with organisations, because that clearly isn't what anybody in this room, I hope, would like to see. So, opportunities. Devolution in Wales has brought a huge opportunity for us to actually make a significant change, and that is being seen because all of the policies have come seamlessly from the Environment Act, which Nicola mentioned, and through those policies and through those processes, we get to have a golden thread of things which go through all of them. And that means that we've got some real strength growing in delivery of environmental requirements in Wales. A fantastic example of that is actually we already have statutory provision for sustainable urban drainage in Wales. That's been there for many years now, and we're currently looking at how to improve and embed nature-based policies in decision making as well. So, from my perspective, opportunities for everybody in this room is we need to start challenging the existing delivery models that we have to deliver the work that we need to do. We have a very traditional way of doing it at the moment, and that needs to change because to deliver the issues that we've got, the size of the issues we've got, we have to embed a collaborative approach, and that means that actually the water industry needs to work with people that perhaps it hasn't worked with before, and it needs to work collaboratively, and it needs to recognise that. And that actually brings a challenge to you guys, because you will need to work differently in order to work with the people that you need to. And that actually may enable us to upskill some workforces in a climate where we've got quite a lot of economic difficulties, because we are going to need a lot more people in the next 5 years to deliver what we need to do. We are at the moment working on something called a data gateway for Wales, and that is for the first time to look at how we can perhaps bring environmental data together into a single platform that will enable us to try and drive some of the solutions that we need to see. It's really important because at the moment there's a large number of different organisations, environmental consultancies, water companies, the government, the regulators doing vast amounts of monitoring in quite an uncoordinated, unconnected way. And we need to drive efficiencies in that, and we need the right information to deliver the right solutions in the right place. Working together, I hope, will enable us to advance some technology that really we've been striving to sort of deliver on for quite a long time, but we need to make those step changes. One of the things that has really come out in Wales over the last 18 months with all of the reports on water quality and phosphorus compliance and many other nutrient issues is that actually, I hate to say it, but we need to go back to something that we had 15 years ago, which is we need to start looking at our rivers as catchments again and how we can manage those rivers on a catchment basis and a whole scale management of it. And that means that actually at the moment, we plan as, the water industry plans, local authority plans, industry plans, and that really needs to stop because actually each one of those sectors is having an impact on the river. And the only way we will get our rivers to be resilient is if we plan for that river in single form. One of the things I'd really like to see the water industry challenge itself on is outcome-based business planning. And we really need to move into that because we need to see delivery against performance. So, challenges. I'm afraid none of you can actually control the greatest challenge of all, which is climate change. And, we've spent many years as an industry and sectors planning for climate change, and it doesn't really feel like it's working, if I'm honest. If I look at water companies' performance reports for this year, those of you that have been failing or are performing least well have quoted things like it was the wet weather, it was the cold weather, it was the dry weather for your failures in performance. Well, we need water companies that are resilient to all of those factors. We have a specific challenge between England and Wales, which is the management of cross-border rivers. There are 3 rivers, the Dee, the Severn and the Wye. They are huge river catchment basins, and that is a huge challenge. We have a devolved Welsh government, as Nicola said, but those rivers, they flow in and out of Wales and England. Potentially solutions that we need to deliver for those rivers actually need to be delivered in a different country to where the benefits of those solutions will be felt. And that really needs us to start thinking, collaborating better in terms of how we're going to do that. Large-scale infrastructure needs to be delivered, and we need to have a really good think, I think, about how we fund that. That is very reliant at the moment on a water company customer bill, and unfortunately the water company has lost its trust in its customers at the moment. And it's very clear from the media at the moment that there's lots of pushback about people paying their water bills, about the size of water bills, and we need to think about that. Is there a different way that we can fund some of the infrastructure that needs to be seen? Many moons ago, when I was working in water companies, we always had this huge focus on everything that was going to get delivered by 2050. We had a vision for 2050. We're working towards that vision for 2050. And the reality is the glide path to get to 2050, to where we've all said we would achieve by 2050, is quite a massive step change now from where we currently are and where performance currently is, and actually what we need to see in terms of those changes. I would hope actually that we need to start thinking about how we work together a little bit more, how we break down some of those silos and how we can work in a very different way. There are multiple challenges to our catchments. The challenge on our rivers is not just a water industry challenge. In Wales, we have a very significant agricultural challenge to that river water quality, and that's going to need some real brave decisions around agricultural reform and how agriculture can also be part of that solution in terms of that river water quality. And I suppose my final point is this, is that our rivers, the current rate of decline on our rivers is far outweighing the pace that I see improvements being delivered at, and that cannot continue. So unfortunately, we don't have time and we need to make those changes now. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all our speakers. We're now going to do a Q&A session. Just in terms of making sure that people online can hear the questions as well as everybody in the room, and we're going to use the microphones religiously, and if necessary, we'll repeat the questions up here. So I can see we've got Nicola back online and Rosemary hopefully is there as well. Does anybody want to kick off with a question. Mark. To introduce yourself.
Yes, sure. Mark Lane, Water Consulting. Question really for Ian. Just so we're all clear, what do you think are the 3 biggest challenges for the English water industry? And what do you consider the 3 biggest challenges for the English water industry are, and how are we going to pay for them, taking a sort of perspective up to 2050?
Well, that's a big question. Where's Ian when you need him? Storm overflows, definitely, right? I suppose it all starts with climate change, but I think there's definitely storm overflows. You couldn't leave that out. One of the top 3 challenges. Where will I go after that? Bills, probably. I think Gail mentioned it there. It does seem like we need a massive step up in investment. So how you pay for that is a real challenge, I suppose. I do think water bills are not they're not that bad right now, but we do need to keep control of that and recognise that some people are going to struggle to pay those and put additional support measures in place. And then I probably think I'll go to something a bit more cross-cutting, if I may, which would be how do you work holistically when you're regulated in silos as the way we are, right? And so the problems don't land just on the water company or just on agriculture. I mean, they cut right across, and we've tried stepping into that grey area a few times, and generally we're told, yeah, no, that's not what a water company does. So I think somehow we need, I don't know if it's a government challenge or policy frameworks, what it is, but it's just how do we work holistically across the patch to improve rivers and other outcomes, I think, and collaborate across sectors.
Thank you, Nigel. I was about to call you Ian as well. And I think some of those collaboration themes and
what about how we
cultural.
pay for them?
Sorry.
How we pay for them? That was the other half of the question, rather important.
Well, yeah, like I said, I mean, we have to be. I think water bills are going to have to go up, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. The other thing, I'm going to express a personal point of view right here rather than a Northumbrian one, perhaps. I think perhaps we need a currency for river water quality as well. And I know that that's worked in other countries where they've had a river water quality credit and a trading system that's a bit like carbon credit. So I think that would be worthy of consideration. But that's a personal opinion.
Great, thank you. I think if anybody's got a question that goes across all the all the other countries, so got time for one question. I can see the ministers arrived, so we can always come back.
So, hi, my name's Emma. I'm a PhD student at Imperial College, and I specialise in wastewater treatment. I've seen a lot of talk about the impacts of climate change on the water industry, and of course that's incredibly important. But I haven't seen anybody talk about the impact of the water industry on climate change. So particularly things like nitrous oxides, or if you're doing anaerobic digestion, release of methane or carbon dioxide. So what is the water industry's plan to minimise its own contribution to its problem?
So I wonder if one of our speakers on the screen might like to take a first go at that. Is that Nicola? Did I just see you put your hand up?
I can give it a go, Sarah. That I'm slightly out of the water industry, and I will draw on Gail if you want to correct me at any point and chip in, please. But absolutely, in terms of tackling climate change and the contribution that all our industries make to that is a really important point, Emma, and something that quite rightly to raise. In Wales, we have our net zero plan and how we're going to get to that by 2050. And again, that collaborative approach has been very much taken to that, spurred on by the First Minister in bringing together the actions needed on that. And it very much includes the industries around Wales in particular So yes, working with the water industry itself, they are very aware of the need to be able to cut emissions, and that goes across all the operations. And I don't know if there is anybody here from Welsh Water as a representative today, but I'm sure they would be able to set out what they're actually doing. But in providing water for ourselves, safe, clean water, it's a really energy heavy industry to provide the water, but also to take it away and treat it and make it clean. We have very old infrastructure that needs replacing. Again, that's going to be, there'll be embedded carbon within that. There will be emissions in doing that. So the whole operation of managing a water company and providing the services that we all need and rely on obviously has a footprint and an impact. And so we are keen for the water industry, and they do know, and they're in this space of looking to reduce that where they can. So a point of reducing it where there's new installations, there's a point of asset replacement and what can be done better. They're looking at ways of not necessarily offsetting, but being very mindful of what other contributions they can make, and looking at more catchment and nature-based solutions where we're looking at things like surface water flows, where we're looking at improving the quality at source, so that we're then having to reduce the amount of energy intensive processes to be able to deliver the same quality products. Gail, very happy for you to come in and correct anything that I've just said there.
Rosemary once. Rosemary, is there anything you'd like to add? Not cutting you off, Gail, but...
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, no, I think I would endorse just what Nicola said. Scottish Water actually has a net zero adaptation plan, and it's published to get to net zero by, I think it's 2045 or 2040. I can't remember. I'll have to double check. But they are very keenly looking at how they reduce their impact on climate change, both in terms of electricity generation, how they deliver their solutions, and looking at, and actually carbon costing. So I gave you a picture of the new water treatment works, and that has a far lower footprint. So it's a good example of how the industry is thinking itself as to how you deliver services using a lower carbon footprint in terms of delivery of the installation, but also the ongoing running costs of an installation. And it's probably very hard to avoid carbon, but it's how we either take measures elsewhere to reduce carbon and other things, but taking every opportunity to reduce carbon in what is an absolutely essential service, as Nicola's just mentioned, but also looking at very much at these nature-based solutions. So how do we make sure the water that gets into a water treatment works is as clean as possible by making sure there aren't pollutants in there? When we get to the wastewater system, how do we think about removing that rainwater so it doesn't, okay, you need a little bit of it to keep the whole system moving, but how do we get rid of the excess rainwater and keep it on the ground and above ground and out of the sewer system so we don't spill, but also we don't treat unnecessarily rainwater? It's a waste. We should be dealing with it separately. So we need to think about it, and then turning to the wastewater. How do we recover those resources? Because there's once we get to a wastewater treatment works, the sludge that comes out is full of resources. Okay, it's all mixed up, but how do we extract value from that? And I think that's a real challenge for the water sector. That we talk about phosphorus, but we need phosphorus for our water treatment. So how do we get it out of one product and put it back into another product? And there's lots of challenges in there. So if you good PhD students have got some really good ideas, there's one nugget to crack.
Rosie, thank you very much. To draw temporarily a line onto the Q&A there, we can always bring our speakers back in later on, because Mr. Pow is with us now. So can I just say thank you to all of show your appreciation to all of the speakers. I'd like to welcome them. Well, I'll just sort of fill in a bit of time, because I took away some very interesting cross-cutting themes from that around culture and team working, optimism and a long-term view. So I think some of those soft things are going to be quite important in some of the discussions later. But I very much like to welcome the Minister. Minister, would you like to come in and I'll introduce you. So if you're all right to work from the lectern here, and are you right to speak with, would you like to hold the thing, sort of
just
strategically?
give me a minute.
I'll give you a
Get
minute.
myself sorted.
In the meantime, I'll introduce the Minister, because that's always a good thing to do. So, Minister Rebecca Pow has been a Minister in DEFRA on and off for 4 years now, and is currently the Minister.
One of the longest standing ministers.
Exactly, things change. But is currently the Minister with responsibility for the water sector. But I know that in the past you've also been in the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport. And we are delighted to welcome you here and looking forward to hearing some of your take on the challenges and opportunities from the UK government's point of view. And then maybe if you've got a little bit of time at the end, we can just take a few questions from the audience.
Yeah,
so over to you.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Sarah. I know you have a long-standing history with DEFRA.
History, yes.
Thank you so much. I was very keen to come to this event because it's just the right group of people to be pulling together is something we very much need now. So I'm very, very pleased that you're holding the event. So I'm going to give a bit of my speech, and then I will answer a few questions, and then Eleanor will drag me off at this point of time because I have to get to some PMQs. Otherwise I get minus points. So I don't want that. So thank you so much to the UK Water Partnership, and I believe that our water sector, the UK water sector, is something the world leader in delivering the infrastructure that we need to ensure a thriving environment. And actually, I've done a bit of foreign travel recently, and the more I do that, the more I realise, actually, it's really not all bad here, is it? There's a great deal of good, a great deal of knowledge and expertise. I personally think we need to shout about that a bit more. I don't know if you're discussing that, but certainly we do. UK consultants, contractors, project managers, regulators, academics, and other stakeholders are really leading the charge to overcome a lot of our international challenges that we're facing, be they water scarcity, poor water quality, flooding. We've got examples of them all over the place. I had a trip to Costa Rica and Colombia. It was actually supposed to be about plastics in the ocean because I'm the International Plastics Minister, amongst other things. But while I was there, of course, there's so many links to water and water supply, what's going on with water, indeed, sewage treatment, of which there's very little to talk about at all in these countries. You realise just what we're doing at home and how much expertise we've got that might help these countries. Anyway, you'll all know that ensuring the UK water sector can deliver improved outcomes for people and the environment, especially in the face of climate change, which I think you've had a previous speaker referring to in detail, and our expanding population, is a really top priority for the public and for this government. So it's really important that we bring our sector together in forums like this to share ideas and specifically to innovate if we are actually going to achieve our really ambitious goals that we've set to lead the way globally. So despite what the critics say, privatisation of the water industry has actually unlocked an incredible £215 billion of capital investment in real terms and delivered really significant benefits for customers and the environment. We have world-class drinking water from the tap. Leakage has been reduced by a third. Yes, there's lots more to do, but big progress has been made. And bathing waters have continued to improve. So to the point that 93% of our bathing waters in this country are classed as good and or excellent. So it's a fantastic track record. And supply interruptions have decreased fivefold. But obviously I recognise the scale and the pace of change to date, particularly around sewage discharges and water security. It doesn't match government's ambition and the public's increasing expectations, and that's why we've taken action. I'm really proud that we've passed our leading Environment Act, our globally leading Environment Act, that went through Parliament and was passed in 2021. I actually steered that through our House of Commons. It took actually 2 years in order to do that. It's a ginormous piece of legislation. I hope you've all got copies of it. Got one on my shelf. And that sets the framework for real change, and it's enabled new legally binding water targets focused on tackling the most significant pressures on the water environment. So that's pollution from agriculture, wastewater, abandoned metal mines, as well as the target to reduce water demand to ensure that we've got a resilient supply of water for future generations. And it ensured that we tackle storm sewage overflows for good, and that we implement monitoring to ensure environmental harm can be understood and rectified. And it ensured that our regulators have the powers that they need to deliver change, but also to hold water utility companies to account if they fall short. And this will help deliver the step change that we need to meet our 25-year environment plan for clean and plentiful water, focused on the tangible actions that we can take to tackle the serious challenges that we face. But we've also delivered our holistic plan for water. This was something actually I instigated when I came into the department. It was over 4 years ago, and looking at all aspects of water, it was quite clear that we need this holistic approach, pulling every part of the water, what I call the water landscape, together: supply, demand, pollution, all of those aspects. And it's really focused on 3 key areas: transforming management of the water system, delivering a clean water environment for people and nature, and securing a plentiful supply of water. And it will deliver, or it aims to deliver, more investment, stronger regulation, and tougher enforcement. And last month, we actually updated our already ambitious storm overflows discharge reduction plan, which was first published in 2022, so that now we include overflows at coastal sites, in estuaries, and around marine protected areas and shellfish waters. So they're all now priorities to improve and update the storm sewage overflows there. And that actually represents £60 billion of capital investment by 2050. So that is the largest infrastructure programme in water company history. So it's really huge. And in addition to those things, we've done other things that will help clean up water. We've just introduced our long-awaited consultation to ban wet wipes containing plastic. That's just opened on the 14th of October. It will run for 6 months. And that's delivering on a commitment in our plan for water. And actually, during all of that, we focus very much on long-term decisions, setting what we hope is a clear direction of travel now for the industry. So we're also facing challenges of a changing climate on our water resources. So the National Infrastructure Commission recommended, due to increasing pressures, that we need around 4 billion litres of additional water a day by 2050. That's a massive amount more water. In fact, it's a quarter as much water as we are using today. And half of this 14 billion litres a day gap will be delivered through improving water efficiency, reducing demand, and cutting wasted water. And the rest will have to come from supplies, new supplies. And our plan for water outlines clear actions government will take to reduce demand. And this includes ambitious actions to reduce this very quickly by doing things such as introducing mandatory water efficiency labelling by 2025, we've already announced that. Reviewing building regulations to set tighter water efficiency standards, and reviewing the water fixtures and fittings regulations. And in addition to each of us using less water, we're also focusing on increasing our long-term supplies, as I said. So right now, water companies are finalising their water resources management plans for price review 2024, and that does include proposals for 9 new desalination schemes, 9 new reservoirs, and that's in addition to the Havant Thicket Reservoir that's already been built, and 11 new water recycling schemes, and many other internal and intercompany transfers of water across the country. I visited a number of them, these great big pipes going, north south, the big one that goes from the Humber right down the east coast, for example. And when delivering this infrastructure, we want to see more innovative nature and catchment-based solutions that will deliver multiple benefits. So we don't just achieve one thing from all this, we achieve lots of other things for access to nature, increasing wildlife, reducing flooding. There are so many other benefits we can get from the projects. And that's also why we're bringing forward new approaches to things like sustainable drainage systems or SUDs, enabling us to bring forward or into force Schedule 3 of the Floods and Water Management Act, so that we get a much more consistent approach to sustainable drainage for new developments, and that will help these other things, reduce flooding and control flooding. So I hope some of these things give a sense of the sheer scale of the opportunities, but also the challenges that we're facing. And so, as you'll know, on October 2nd, Water UK announced that water utility companies are proposing a combined £96 billion programme of investment between 2025 and 2030. So this would represent the largest investment in infrastructure ever made by the water industry, and it's an 88% increase on investment for the current 5-year price review period. And in turn, this investment will obviously boost economic growth, create jobs, the sectors that many of you represent today, and I really welcome that ambition. And I recognise that these plans are just the opening pitch. It's going to be a year's work to actually finalise those plans, and that's what's very involved in doing as the independent regulator, to make sure that the water companies meet the legal targets the government set, but also we have to constantly be mindful of the cost to the taxpayer and value for money for the taxpayer. And so it is though a step change. This next price review will be a step change in what we're seeing in this ambition and the investment since basically privatisation. And I understand it will put pressure on many companies and supply chains to deliver all of this. And that means actually that innovation, efficiency, technology is going to be even more important. And many water companies have got long established and trusted supply chains and partnerships. And so, we need to step up, work together. I think you've been talking about collaboration today, to hope to enable us to get the investment that we need. And we've got a lot of critical infrastructure that will need to be built quickly. Our new national policy statement for water resources will streamline the process of obtaining planning permission. That's one of the big, I wouldn't say stumbling blocks exactly, but it holds things up. So hopefully that will be streamlined to deliver this nationally significant infrastructure, such as new reservoirs, and likewise the Regulators Alliance for Progressing Infrastructure Development. That's a big mouthful. Short to rapid. That's been formed for this very reason, and to help water companies to accelerate the development of new infrastructure and to ensure that we've got the right regulation to enable the development to adapt to the increasing pressures that we've got on water. And governments also ensuring that we'll continue to support large-scale infrastructure projects in a range of ways. Innovative ways, for example, like the Thames Tideway Tunnel project. I've just come from a meeting about the Thames Tideway to check, obviously, that we're on track and on budget. And it's a fantastic project. I don't know if anybody here has been down it. Have you? Anybody visited it? 8 weeks left to go down, before we're not allowed to go down because it's getting nearer the time of it opening. But that's a £4.48 billion project, but it's a really, really interesting model of this private-public partnership that obviously is government, where we're looking at really closely. I know the water industry is too, as a potential model for delivering some of this future investment. And we had the investors there as well today, and they just stumped up the next lot of money. The money is there. As long as they're confident that it's a project that will work, will deliver the money, and it's costed in the right way. Obviously, the money's gone to customer bills, but it's all been recalculated, £25 on customer bills, as was anticipated. They're up to the top limit now, probably might come down a bit. But I'm also really aware a lot of companies are suffering from skill shortages. Don't know if you've covered that yet,
Not yet
today, but you might later. I'm
Yeah.
sure you will. I think there was something like 63,000 vacancies in the water industry that need filling, and that's a huge amount given what we've got ahead of us. And but I see what's ahead and all of the investment as a challenge, but also an enormous opportunity. But we've got, I think, only 8% of the industry's workforce is under 24, and I think more than a fifth are less than a decade away from retiring. So it's a big issue to attracting the right people. But I did want to say that on the summer I went on my water walkabout around the country looking at projects, and I was so heartened that when I met people working in the industry, they're absolutely committed to it. And have you found that? They're such experts in what they do. I'm very sad about some of the adverse publicity that's going on. And just a couple of examples, and they were often people who are heading up the whole sewage treatment works. This is a 7 treatment work site. They've got to put in new monitoring, new storage tanks, loads of work. The guy worked his way right up through the company. He was really excited about the challenge, and they had a great training academy actually at Severn Trent. I know lots of other water companies have similar academies, and the people working there and teaching were so enthusiastic. And then there was another team I met at the Draycott Reservoir. They were expanding this reservoir by 6%. And the engineers were all super excited because it's been fast forwarded and they can do it much more quickly. And they loved the idea of this actually, being able to see it happen almost before their eyes. And they were young and enthusiastic. So I think there's so many opportunities, aren't there? And even in my own area, I went out on Sunset Level, so we've got a big phosphate issue. And there was a trial project called run by Salinity Solutions, which is a sort of container reverse osmosis system that you can tack onto your sewage treatment works that's already treated water. And then you can run it through this system really quickly, again, before your eyes, and it takes out even more phosphate or even more nitrate. And they were scaling this up, and there was a whole young team of people that went to Birmingham University, Aston, I think, who thought of the idea, got the investment, scaling it up, and they were genuinely excited. So I hope you've got lots of ideas like that in this room. I'm sure you have, and that we'll see a great deal more of them. So I know you want me to wind up, but I just feel like we've got huge opportunities. I know we've got huge challenges, but I think we need to harness them. And I hope you feel that government is there, and we've now got this, I think, really sound framework for going ahead for what we've got to deliver. And I do believe we can deliver it, but we do need to do it as a massive team effort. Thank you.
Minister, a huge thank you for that. And I think what lots of people in the room will take heart from is both the breadth of what you're talking about and the enthusiasm that you clearly have for the challenges ahead, because that's definitely what we've got in the room. And if I can sort of take the privilege perhaps of just asking the first question, given that enthusiasm and all the opportunities you've talked about, and we've got some very young people as well as some of the grey-beards in the room, grey heads maybe I should say, it's sexist. How can we work with you to project that really positive image of a very exciting industry? Because what concerns me about all the negative publicity and what it's all about sewage outfalls and how dreadful the industry is that it will put these really bright young people off. And I wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
We put you on the spot there. Well, yeah, I get really quite depressed about the publicity that we get. And I took issue, I was on the South West Regional BBC programme on Sunday, and they pre-recorded it on Friday night. And they cut out my bits that gave the positive bits and the investment and all of that, and so that the public didn't get an accurate picture about what was happening. So it's definitely partly a comms issue, but the thing is we can't rely on what I call the vote. And I was in the media myself. I was an environment correspondent for years, but I prided myself on my sources and my accuracy. So I now take issue with a lot of them, because if they don't do that, it's it's not doing public any kind of service. And quite clearly, you've got to clear up our rivers and sewage. But I hope we're demonstrating you've got the plan in place to do that. It's a lot about messaging, and I guess you're all quite powerful yourselves in terms of what you could put out. And I'm always trying to find good examples of things, like the Tideway Tunnel, for example. But there are loads of others, aren't there? Like that other Salinity solutions I've given you. If people, when you tell people about these things, they're genuinely excited, aren't they? But also from the knowledge I've got of the water companies, for example, I've met, a lot of them do have very good training schemes, and they're actually quite secure for young people. Obviously, they've got to be competitive in what they pay. And I think we just got to go out there and sell ourselves, or you've got to sell yourselves.
Well, I think that's quite nicely passed the ball back to us today. So I'm just going to open it up. Would anybody in the room like to ask the Minister a question? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Minister, thank you. Martin Bigg from the worshipful company All the Conservatives. Thank you for your enthusiasm. I'd like to pick up on one thing that you mentioned, catchment management planning. Can you share more of your vision for the use of management planning, particularly bringing together a partnership of all those contributing to the catchments?
Yes, and I've done quite a bit of work with you now on Water Conservators. It's a great group of people, I say, from across history. We've got people who are pre-privatisation, aren't we, who are Conservators, privatisation, so you've got real expertise and knowledge, I think. So the question is about catchments, and going forward and in our plan for water, there's a real emphasis and focus on working on a catchment scale, which I think is absolutely critical. It's something I've really pushed for myself, because unless you go right up to the headwaters and then work yourself down to the sea, you can't really tackle all the problems, particularly pollution, because it's not just about sewage and water companies, it's also about farming and agriculture. Hence, we've also got targets for them in reducing nitrates, phosphates. Also, we've got new grants. We've got £34 million of new slurry grants. So we're pulling together all of that, and we are developing. I've got a team working on it now. Catchment plans for every catchment, and actually we need to do it quite quickly because. Realistically, water companies should be thinking about that too when they come up with their planning. We've asked companies, in fact, it's in the Environment Act, that water companies across boundaries work together more, and local authorities and all of these things. And catchment planning will also be so important, well, for water, but nature and flooding, but also when all the legal authorities do their local nature recovery strategies. Because really they need to be looking at a catchment scale for those. So it's a big focus, especially in talk rivers and talk streams as well.
Thank you. Anywhere else in the room? Yeah, so.
Simon Stringer, Action Free Eyes, and also a water conservator. It's a follow up a little on Martin's question, because I think this catchment-based, nature-based solutions in catchments is very much a way forward. But sort of looking ahead, maybe we need to move from just saying, well, how do we build separate bits of nature or a bit of natural flood management, to fundamentally changing the way we do our farming to regenerative principles, so that we're creating the soils, creating the systems, working with diverse natural systems, rather than clearing things in monoculture. This is an utterly radical change required in our whole land use to do that. But how do you see government starting this sort of role forwards? I mean, we don't know exactly where it's going yet. We don't know all about it. But how do we sort of get started on that and go for these sort of proper integrated solutions?
Okay, thank you very much for that. Another subject very near to my heart. The first woman person to do a debate on soil in Parliament. And now I would say we've already started. For example, soil management is one of the key tiers in the Sustainable Farming Initiative, i.e. paying the farmers to manage their land correctly, i.e. not plough up and down so that the water runs off into the river, plough across, have cover crops in the winter, you know, all of those things. They're now, well, potentially they should have really been doing all sort of them, and some were, of course. But so there's already an enormous transition in terms of the way the payments are geared to get farmers to be more to look after the management of the land in a different way. And we're just about in November to open the next information about the ELM scheme, which there will be some more detail in there about what we're talking about, particularly to do with rivers, because we really want to encourage farmers up and down catchments to have buffer zones along rivers, again, to plant trees or have shrubs which catch the water, hold the water, stop the flooding, but also brilliant for nature and wildlife. So I would say we're going that way. You can't force farmers to do things. It's voluntary and they own 70% of the land. So you've got to have enough money to entice them in. They've got to think it's worth it. But also, we still have to produce food. So we had a meeting just yesterday about, you know, brainstorming and planning our proposed land use strategy. So the things you refer to, we're all feeding into this.
If I can just come in there, because as somebody who leads in my day job, a membership organisation for farmers and land managers, they're definitely up for this and are looking with interest at the new schemes. It's a huge culture change, as you say, and so I would encourage all of you here to think about how you can work with those people on a local basis, bring them in, get their ideas, make them feel part of the solution.
Yeah, it's very difficult because we find top 20% are already engaged, so it's bringing everyone else in. And actually there's huge opportunity now through our schemes. We've got the large landscape scale scheme for drawing groups of farmers together up and down the catchment. Say, for example, if it's a water company and you want to do more about cleaning the water and filtering the water and taking out pollutants, if you get the farmers in a cluster together, the management proposal plan, potentially could apply for one of these large landscape scale grants for them to farm in a particular way that will deliver the target that is required.
Thank you. Do you have time for one last short question which came in online? And it's about the amount of investment that's needed, and really from your discussions with those who are going to need to provide that investment, are you confident that actually that uplift of about 80–90% is going to be forthcoming?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. It's a massive step change in investment. But you have to take, for example, the Thames Highway project as an example. Get the model right, then the funding is there. So that's a critical part of it. More creative ways of going about partnerships, maybe more competitive tendering, and a whole range of, I think, opportunities open up. Yeah, and obviously in the price review plan, the final figure isn't, we don't know yet, and I'm working with the EA, and we'll have to get the balance right between what we deliver, the targets, the environmental protection, and the cost of the customer bills. So all of that's got to be taken into account.
And actually, just going back to what we were saying before, when you think about some of the local stuff and the land management, there are also private companies who are quite interested in coming and doing this as part of their requirements.
It's what we call green finance. We're told there's this latent huge pot of money waiting for pension companies and so forth. But government's doing a lot of work on that. Yeah.
Minister, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
So we're grabbing you now for a quick photo opportunity. Whilst everybody else goes off and has a well-deserved coffee, can we just please show the minister up?